Are you tired of attracting the wrong type of person into your life? Do you feel like you give and give and give, but never get something in return? If your relationship feels like a battle of wills in which you're constantly feeling not good enough for your partner, then there may be a chance that you're involved with someone who struggles with narcissistic wounding. Narcissism is often characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance and a need for constant validation from others. People with this personality type are often very insecure and may be emotionally manipulative in order to get what they want. Narcissism can be tricky, however, because it can manifest in a variety of ways, specifically expressed through 3 insecure attachment styles. Now, with the knowledge and understanding gained from this video series, you will learn about the necessity of normal narcissism in childhood development. You will also be able to identify 4 subtypes of narcissistic presentation and how it can impact your life. And you will gain a better understanding of how narcissistic wounding leads to insecure attachment styles. So grab a pencil and paper because you are definitely going to want to take notes, and be sure to stick with me until the end. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Briana MacWilliam, and I am a licensed and board-certified creative arts therapist, author, and educator with more than 15 years in the field, helping adults struggling with insecure attachment go from self-doubting to self-sovereign so they can attract those soul-shaking, passionate partnerships that they want without having to talk in circles around their feelings for hours or even years on end with no tangible result. And I do this using a psycho-spiritual approach to creative arts interventions using the MacWilliam method. Today, I'm going to be sharing a clip of a live stream event that took place inside my private Facebook groups, which people can access once they've purchased one of my online courses. If you're interested in finding out if you might have insecure attachment, check out the link in the caption of this video. You'll be able to take an easy 4-question quiz and find out your attachment style, plus a detailed explanation. Now, if you like what you see in here, and you haven't yet, make sure that you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications. I put up videos once or twice a week, and sometimes I will do occasional live streams through my YouTube channel, and I wouldn't want you to miss out. Now, this was inspired by a question that I often see popping up in the online community. What are the intersections between narcissism and insecure attachment styles? So I want to start by looking at the origins of narcissistic behavior. Okay. So let's call this the origins of narcissistic wounding. Now, knowing the origins of narcissistic wounding, this can help us understand why we may have been attracted to a narcissistic person in the first place. And this is because disrupted attachment relationships are usually at the root of it. So understanding this background information can really help us create some context around our romantic experiences and see things in a different way. And that's going to allow us to separate ourselves from the stories of low self-worth or self-blame that may have been imposed upon us, so that we can adopt a new, whole, healthy, secure sense of self and identity moving forward. So in the early study of narcissism, psychoanalyst Heinz Kohut found that children need to have what he called a sense of normal narcissism. So this is when a child starts playing with imaginary and grandiose ideas about themselves, and they look to their parents to validate these ideas. And if they receive enough positive regard, then their immaturely inflated sense of self naturally becomes more mature and integrated and realistic as they grow older and encounter just the normal frustrations of everyday life and limitations of everyday life. So how we evolve out of this phase of normal narcissism really depends upon if you have supportive and encouraging parents versus critical or demeaning parents. Okay, so for example, let's look at the supportive parents. I would have you imagine a child zipping around the room with a blanket tied around their neck, and they're pretending to be Superman. And the child says, "Ooh, look at me, Mommy, I'm Superman. Look at me fly. Look at how strong I am." Now, in this moment, the child is playing with a form of normal narcissism. He is playing with an imaginative and grandiose sense of himself, right? I'm Superman. Now, a supportive parent might say, "Ooh, wow, look at you go. Hey, big, strong Superman, so proud of you." And maybe the child lights up in response to their encouragement and starts to believe, you know what, I am capable of great things. And over time, through the normal limitations of life and the realities of growing up, eventually that child is going to come to understand that those great things may not necessarily be, flying through the air or being strong enough to lift a bus, but it might translate into believing in the possibility for success in other areas like life, love, career, and so on, right? Now, let's look at the critical parent response. Now, on the other hand, what if the parent sees that child, flying around the room and bristles and gets red-faced and starts yelling at that child who's darting around the room? Shut up, sit down, look at how your stupidity is ruining my rug and my furniture. I don't want to hear from you unless spoken to, you idiot. Right? Now, in that moment, what's being communicated? Well, what is being communicated to the child is that they are worth less to that parent than the rug and the furniture. That the creative, self-exploratory process that the child was playing out in that moment, quite naturally and innocently, was in fact offensive. It was damaging, and it inspired punitive repercussions. So in time, the child learns to not only distrust their own intuition and creative impulses, but to feel distaste, shame, anger, and guilt for even having an inner life. They may also doubt that they are capable of great things. And so in adulthood, to play in this way is considered selfish, entitled, or downright offensive. Then, when we look out into the world and we see people succeeding or carving a path for themselves, we might feel envy, judgment, or even hatred of them, because that is how the creative impulse within you was treated, right? So now this evolves through egocentric thinking. So now we continue to grow and the brain grows and our cognitions evolve. And in that phase of development, we have what is called egocentric thinking. So now the negative responses to normal narcissism in childhood, this can lead to a very rigid form of egocentric thinking. So in other words, a child has an immature way of making sense of the world. So to a child, the world revolves around them, and they feel like they have a lot of power over people, places, and things when they really don't. Okay. So for example, mom is angry. I must have done something wrong to upset her, so it must be about me. I must be bad. To make it right, I'm going to do good things to make her happy and prove that I am good. But what if the parent does not empathize with that child's distress and instead reinforces the idea that the child is very bad, a burden, and not good enough? And if they're not measuring up to some standard of behavior or condition of love, then they're not worth their time, right? Well, that thought process becomes internalized too. And it turns into what John Bradshaw calls a wounded inner child. Fast forward that sentiment 20 or 30 years, and it sounds like my husband or my wife or my spouse is angry. I must have done something to upset them, so this must really be about me. Therefore, it's my fault. I have to fix it to earn their love back and feel worthy of love. So whatever input you're receiving, whether you are outwardly acting in service of the other or not, emotionally and energetically speaking, it's all about negotiating someone else's mental and emotional proximity to you and how their energetic states are defining your energetic states. So in other words, even if you appear to be actively helping others, it's still about you. And that is a quintessential narcissistic wound and characteristic born of rigid egocentric thinking. Okay. So this is really important to understand, especially if your goal is recovery, because it leaves you completely ungrounded and with a totally abandoned sense of self and center. So you cannot really see anyone else for who they are because you are too caught up in figuring out how they define you. So this is the essence of what happens when you have what's called narcissistic wounding at a young age, and how you choose to cope with it evolves through the filters of attachment styles. Now, not everyone who has such an extreme response, not everyone will have such an extreme response to a tough childhood, resulting in severe symptoms that warrant a diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder specifically. However, these things do evolve on a spectrum, and you are likely to find traits that resemble narcissistic wounding in individuals with every single insecure attachment style. In fact, it's usually the basis of their insecurity, however it presents itself, because narcissistic wounds and attachment wounds go hand in hand, and they are arguably basically the same thing, but they can evolve differently. In fact, the literature suggests that there are these four subtypes or presentations for narcissistic wounding, and these types are often attracted to each other. And if you're in my group, you understand that I talk about this through an energetic language, and that is because there is a similar energetic string or vibration that is being plucked between you. And in the last segment, we looked at about how to cut toxic cords with people, right, and find healthy relationships. We talked about how this thread that brought you together is all about digging into what is that original wound. And once you discover that, that is the spiritual lesson. And once you integrate that, now you stop being attracted to these types of partners that don't serve you, and you start being attracted to different people that are more in service of your evolution, right? Now, the next time you meet someone who you think might be narcissistic, understand that they are dealing with a deep and profound insecurity and pain. And then draw a healthy line between you and them. Now, it is possible to have healthy boundaries and still be compassionate. And that is a much lighter burden than carrying around a lot of judgment or disdain for someone else's self-centered behavior. Because remember, if you suffer from insecure attachment styles yourself, then your past wounds are influencing the way you engage in relationships as well. Now, I hope you found this information helpful in understanding the intersections between narcissistic wounding and insecure attachment styles. If you did, make sure you leave me a comment and let me know. In the second part of this video series, I'm going to explore this more in depth, the process of recovery and healing, and also introduce an art therapy activity to help you cultivate stronger personal boundaries and a sense of self-security. So make sure that you like, subscribe, and ring the bell for notifications, because you do not want to miss the next two parts of this series. Thank you, and have a great week.